jas Singh ji ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਹੱਥ ਜੋੜ ਕੇ ਫਤਿਹ ਸਾਂਝੀ ਕਰਿਓ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ We've heard today the importance of truth ਸੱਚ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਦਾ ਪਹਿਰਾ ਆ ਗੁਰੂਆਂ ਨੇ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਸੱਚ ਤੇ ਤੋੜਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ So it's really important that we persevere and follow and discover the truth. The journey is not an easy one. It's one with many obstacles and many challenges. But ultimately, it's the principles and the perseverance of yourselves and those who seek the truth that will ultimately get us to the end outcome. This was demonstrated this year in March when after a 15-year-long campaign, the Sikhs of the UK managed to lift the ban placed on the International Sikh Youth Federation in 2001. Now that ban was placed under Prescription Terrorism Act, and that was placed under pressure from the Indian government and of the UK government. And after 15 years, that ban was removed because they had no evidence of Sikhs were involved in terrorism. Over the past 12 months, you've heard from Paul how truth is important, and we need to continue to get to the bottom of the truth of what this country and this government's involvement was in 1984. And that search will continue. Truth is a critical part of the process of justice. Justice must also be timely. Unfortunately, Sikhs have been denied both by the Congress government following the attack on Sri Darbar Sahib in June 1984. So self-appointed justice was delivered by Satwan Singh Ji, Shaheed Bhai Beyan Singh Ji and Kher Singh on the 31st of October 1984 against the Indian Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. This was similarly followed up by Sukhdev Singh Sukha, by Harjinder Singh Jinda, Mahan Shaheed of the Sikh Panth against General Vaidya on the 10th of August 1986. But after continued lack of investigations, truth or justice into the massacre of thousands of innocents in the deadly Operation Woodrose from June to September, which ultimately had no connection to the alleged events of Darbar Sahib complex or Operation Blue Star, but still was carried out with deadly force by the Indian Army. It is reported that over up to 100,000 Sikh youth were disappeared across all of Punjab. The Indian state effectively declared war on the Sikh Panth across India, brutally demonstrated by the state-sponsored genocide on Sikhs on the streets of Delhi and other cities in India in November 1984. Again, these events were unrelated to Operation Blue Star, as that was their predetermination to attack the Sikhs. This planning was already in place. Before Gandhi was assassinated, Operation Shanti was being planned to be rolled out on the 8th of November. But in response to all this, the Sikhs called the Sarbat Khalsa on the 29th of April 1986, and this year we mark the 30th anniversary, where the declaration and the Sikh Panth said again it would stand and fight for its rights, but in the pursuit of an independent Sikh state of Khalistan, using all methods available. Now many Sikhs have continued the struggle for justice. Jaswant Singh Kaldra and other human activists have tried to deliver justice to discover the truth of what happened in Punjab under Operation Woodrose and other army operations. But even they were eliminated by the same evil perpetrators who in turn received promotions and rewards. Butchers such as Julius Ribeiro, KP Gill, and amongst many others. Independent human rights organizations, including the UN Rapporteur on Human Rights, have continuously been denied access to the Punjab. 32 years on, no one has been allowed into Punjab to independently investigate. But on the flip side, laws such as TADA and other draconian laws were drafted in by the government to unjustly and rapidly capture, torture, charge, and convict Sikh men and boys purely on their Sikh identity and any suspicion with very little or no evidence to back that up, many of whom are still languishing in prisons across India to this very day. Now, after 30 years of ignorance and cover-ups by the Indian state, the Modi government was the first to come out and make reference to the events of 1984 as being a genocide, when in December 2014, the Union Home Minister Rajnath Singh referred to what happened to the Sikhs as a genocide, and that justice would not be meted out to the victims until the perpetrators of those crimes were punished. Despite the infamous Modi visit to the UK in November 2015, which unsuccessfully attempted to break the Panthak unity with a false hope of resolution disguised as dialogue, there is very little confidence within Sikhs here in the UK that either the central government or the Punjab government will ever deliver any kind of justice for the genocides on the Sikhs. The Sikh Network's UK survey concluded that 98% of Sikhs in this country believe that they have no confidence in those two to deliver justice, and there are empty gestures. The Modi government continued to fail on the simplest of demands. For example, the return of priceless artifacts stolen by the Indian government and the Indian army from the Sikh Reference Library in June 1984. These included rare manuscripts of Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, Hukamnamas carrying the signatures of many gurus, and history related to the Sikh Raj. But instead, the authorities have been trying to appease the Sikh diaspora by removing things such as the blacklists. Following the genocide in 1984, many Sikhs abroad were put on these lists without a notification, which restricted their travels. But ultimately, removal of blacklists is not justice for the Sikhs. In other areas, some point out progress around a permanent or temporary release of Sikh political prisoners. And this has been a positive step, but ultimately, it is the permanent, unconditional release that the Sikh community not only deserve, but demand. More than 6 months later, it is clear the Indian authorities, whether they're in Delhi or in power in Punjab currently, are not sincere. They have tried to manipulate the release of Sikh political prisoners and play with the sentiments of the Sikh nation, all for political gains and elections that are forthcoming in Punjab. The release has been largely down to international pressure and campaigns and awareness by the likes of Bapu Surat Singh, an 84-year-old who left the comforts of the United States and is on currently 500 plus days into his hunger strike. So just releasing Sikh political prisoners is not justice. This is the basic demands. Another long-standing demand was the prosecution of police officers for their involvement in human rights violations in Punjab. I mentioned the UN rapporteurs and independent inquiries have been denied access, but over the last year, many high-profile police officers have come forward and confessed to the torture and murder of the extrajudicial killings that they were involved in, often directed by the most senior police officers, DJPs, and the chief ministers of Punjab. So whilst we understand and the need to engage in dialogue with the Sikhs, we have always been open and will welcome it. But we make it very clear that any negotiation would be on the principles of the Sikh Panth and on the grounds that any dialogue would take place. The Sikh Panth has not done anything wrong. Why should we have to compromise on our principles? We suffered the genocide of June. We suffered the genocide from 84 to 95. We suffered the genocide in November. Why should the Sikhs have to compromise and suddenly change what our end goals are? It is the state's responsibility to stand up and deliver justice for its citizens. We are not blind to the intentions. Let's be honest, the BJP has a Hindutva agenda and would love to see that country as a Hindu race. It is full of religious intolerance against all minorities, which have been well documented. It's even more worrying because they consider Sikhs to be submissive and part of their race. And any restitution is impossible other than more assimilation using the divide and rule tactics. Whilst we must strive for justice on the historic grievances and atrocities, let's also be mindful that justice remains outstanding for the attacks that are happening today. The disrespect on Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, Sarups, the murder of many innocent Sikh protesters, and the inappropriate control of Sikh institutes and influence over the Sikh Panth. 32 years on and counting, so what really is justice for the Sikhs? We are well beyond any reasonable time frame to have faith in the state to deliver justice. given the complicity, the corruption, and the impunity of politicians who were directly involved and are within the current government. As Sikhs, we are duty-bound and must continue in our pursuit for the truth set by our gurus. And only the truth will expose the injustice that will ultimately result in freedom. As Sikhs, freedom is the only form of justice that is now acceptable to the Sikh Panth. Questions is, are we prepared for the fight and the challenge that lies ahead? We are here because of the dedication and the bravery of the Shaheeds that we are marking and we're remembering today, and all the elders who have continuously fought for over 30 years. However, the road is still long and it's a tough way ahead. So we have a decision to make. Do we take the easy road out and just act passively and pretend that we're Panthic-minded, or will we take action? And do we take the mantle set by the likes of Sant Janel Singh Khalsa Pindrawale, who we all respect and admire, and step on the path of righteousness and remember one thing: Je jiuna ta anak naal, je marna ta dharm vaste. Waheguru ji ka khalsa, Waheguru ji ki fateh.